Hi, everybody. This is Dan Cirucci, and I'm here with New Jersey Assemblywoman Dawn Fantasia. And the first thing I'm going to do, and I promised you that we'd be here live this evening at 8 o'clock, and it is exactly 8 o'clock, and here we are. And the first thing I'm going to do is just check to make sure that we are on Facebook, that we are on my Facebook page. And once I verify that, Dawn, you can place this on your Facebook page by sharing it. And I encourage other people to share. Let's see, we're not there yet. Let's see. It sometimes takes a few moments to come up on Facebook. There it is. We are there. And I'm going to set this at public so that it can be easily shared. And there we are. And I'm also checking to make sure that we are on LinkedIn, which we are, and we are on my YouTube channel, Dan Cirucci YouTube channel. And everybody, as soon as this is over, as soon as the interview is over, I will put it up on my blog at dancirucci.com. So you'll be able to see it there as well. Okay, I don't know if, there. Yes, it looks like we are there. Let's see. Yes, it looks like we're there on LinkedIn right now too. Okay, so Dawn, we were chatting. I mean, your story, let me go back a little bit here and tell everybody why I decided I wanted to have this chat with Dawn. I've been following her on social media. First of all, she's very, for a state official of New Jersey, she's very, very active on social media. She's right out there. She says exactly what she thinks. And it's all there for you to digest. She's very clear about her views. There's no evasiveness. And this is what attracted me to you, Dawn. I said, I have to talk to this woman.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you. Prior, even when I was in local government and county government, I probably started getting the most active on social media. I was a middle school principal at the time during the whole COVID lockdowns and all of that. Everything went digital. I was a deputy director of the Freeholder Board in Sussex County, and the subsequent year, the director, and a lot of our information got out via social media. I mean, everybody was at home. There were people working at home. Kids were learning from home. So I started hosting, kind of community meetings for my parents at the school. For the kids, I used to have morning meeting just to see voluntarily. And out of, I had 450 kids in my school building, and I'd have 300, 350 just log on just to say good morning. So, I mean, I really started to embrace, I guess, the model, and realized as we were putting out information, from the county, instead of waiting for it to be on a website or whatnot, it was just easier to use that. So, it hasn't failed me up to that point. So, really in the state, I do notice, there's some legislators who are super active and some who aren't at all. And either way is fine. But, it's been a good medium for me to be able to reach, the people I want to reach.
Absolutely. And you and I share something. We both have been, and you still are, educators and have a background in education. I'm a former 5th grade teacher. That was a long, long time ago. And then I was, for 7 years more recently, an instructor at Penn State University. So we have a keen interest in education. You have a pretty deep background in education. Tell us about it.
Well, that was actually my plan B. I went to school, my undergraduate was for communications and theater. And I did that for a period of time, before I got married and had my kids. But then, my plan B when life gets real and staying out till midnight, doing performances or directing shows doesn't really cut it in a family kind of setting. So my plan B was always to teach English. I was a big, Shakespeare kid. I was a big book nerd. So it just was the logical choice to be my plan B. So I got my teaching certification, and I started out teaching fourth grade, but then I segued to teach English in middle school. And then, the natural progression was to go into administration. I was a vice principal at a high school and then a middle school principal for about 6 years. And then I went back to our central office. And now, actually, I really love my job. I've segued into a position, especially post-COVID, that is learning loss remediation for students in English and math. And we target students who are at least 2 grade levels behind their peers. And this is the second year that we've partnered with a tutoring group that comes in and works embedded in the school day. And we've seen such growth in the kids who really, those draconian lockdowns killed them, not only killed them socially, not only stressed them mentally, just academically, they're backed against a wall. So it's really fulfilling to see the growth of our most struggling learners, to try to get them caught up.
And you also have, as I do, a background in communications and public relations.
Yes. So for a period of time, for a couple of years, I worked for a charter network of schools, and I would write school applications and handle their communications for the public. And, when I was in college, I was the manager of the radio station and a radio station DJ. So I enjoyed that a lot too. That seems like many moons ago. But yeah, I guess at the end of the day, every career path I could have possibly had involved talking, writing, and reading. So those are probably my 3 loves. Maybe not in that order.
You remain a very convincing communicator. And Dawn is a single mom. She's the mother of 3 pretty much grown children now. She certainly doesn't look like it, I'll tell you that. I don't know what her secret is. I really don't. But I'm sure that has contributed to your insight, raising 3 children who are all, as I understand it, we were chatting before we went on, who are all pretty successful already.
Yeah, they're really great, and they're a blessing. I always said, oh, maybe I'm not going to have kids till I'm a little older, and I got married relatively young, and we had the kids early, and I said, well, now let's have them all at the same time so they're not spread out. So that sounded like a great idea till it was time to pay for college for all of them, and then it probably didn't feel like such a great idea. But now my youngest is in grad school, so it all works out. It all works out.
Doing the figures, I had some of them on my blog at dancirucci.com. The figures for New Jersey on education are just appalling. I think a lot of people don't realize it because New Jersey for a long, long, long time had a reputation as one of the top states in education. But under Governor Murphy in particular, we've really fallen. We've spent more and more and more money, and we've fallen further and further and further behind. 55% of New Jersey's 4th graders, and you mentioned you're a 4th grader, you were a 4th grade teacher, can't do math at grade level, 55%. When in 2017, 4th graders in New Jersey ranked number 5 in the nation in math. In 2024, they ranked number 30 in math. In 2017, they ranked number 3 in reading. In 2024, they ranked number 16 in reading. What the hell is going on, Dawn?
Well, I have a couple theories about it, but if you check the timeline, I don't think you have to look much further from the timeline to match up the leadership to the drop in achievement, in student achievement. We started moving away. When we go back to the Christie era, whether you liked him, whether you didn't like him, he was a strong proponent for school choice. He was a strong proponent for teacher accountability. He revamped Achieve NJ. That was the evaluation mode for teachers. It set the bar high for students. And let's just talk about the state level now, not even federally. But when you look at who was put in leadership positions, for instance, the Commissioner of Education, there's a gentleman by the name of Dr. Lamont Rapellet, and he was the principal of Asbury Park. And Asbury Park was really flailing. They were doing miserably with their graduation rate. And all of a sudden, Dr. Rapellet comes in, and their graduation rates really accelerate. They soar. And we said, "What's your secret?" And it was called the 64th floor. And what the 64th floor was that no child could score below a 64 in any class. So in essence, no failing grades. There were also initiatives. If you, let's say, didn't go to your algebra class, your geometry class, any of those high school level math classes, you could do community service. You could maybe pick up litter in the park and whatnot and earn course credit. And why do you think the graduation rate jumped in Asbury Park? Because of the 64th floor. Well, it was impossible to fail. So you were pushing kids through who could not even do basic math at that, let's say, 9th grade, 10th grade level. So it gets better. Where do you think Dr. Rapellet ended up after Asbury Park? He ended up as the Commissioner of Education appointed by Governor Phil Murphy. So if that is the standard that we are setting, and that is the standard bearer, we have a problem. Now couple that with subsequent appointments that are lackluster, just being completely honest, lackluster to say the least, with us putting so much time and energy and effort into social initiatives, to the social cause du jour, and moving away from true remediation, true prescriptive learning in English and math, moving to all of these, feel-good initiatives that have very little to do with the science of reading, trying to teach children to solve math problems 14 different ways. And that's great and all, but we've moved away from the basics. We've moved away from times tables. We've moved away from hardcore phonics instruction. All of the tried and true methods that worked for generations, for years and years, suddenly, my attitude is, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And that's exactly what we did. We broke it in an attempt to fix something that wasn't broken. So here we are now. We have kids that can't read. We have kids that can't do math. I mean, I know when I go to Dunkin' Donuts or whatnot, you have kids that can't count change back to you when you hand them cash. We're in a bad way. They don't know cursive. They can't sign their name. They can't read documents. When I was the principal at the middle school, I started an initiative for cursive handwriting. And all the younger kids got basic cursive books, but the students in grades 6, 7, and 8 got historical documents. They got copies of the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, all of that. Those books were how they learned to read and write cursive. We're really at the mercy, honestly, of boards of education when we have a Department of Education that flails about like they're flailing.
And I'm down here in South Jersey, in Camden County, in Cherry Hill, and Dawn at Cherry Hill Schools had a marvelous reputation. It's one of the things that brought people to Cherry Hill and made it a desirable community in the first place, and made it grow and grow and grow and grow. And now the Cherry Hill Schools have gone woke. They've gone totally woke. They're into teaching kids. Well, they're not teaching kids. They're propagandizing kids, is what they're doing with all this woke nonsense, and they're neglecting the basics. They have woke advocates have packed the Board of Education. They've chosen a woke superintendent, and they're following the woke line and enforcing it. Even the executive order of President Trump on this hasn't seemed to deter them. How is this going to end?
It's going to take legal action. I mean, look at policy 5756, right? where our attorney general and the governor and whatnot said, this is an educational policy you must follow. No, it was not. It was guidance. It was guidance that was offered. The true policy was your school has to have a policy. Your school can't pretend like this issue isn't happening. Your school has to have a policy. Instead, they convoluted it and twisted it and forced this narrative on schools that said, in essence, you need to cut the parents out. The parents have no say. It's a secret as to what's going on, because the assumption, instead of, this is the part that always baffled me. Instead of looking at homes where maybe there were problems, maybe there was abuse as the exception to the rule, it seems as if our Department of Education and our state government looked at it like all parents are the problem. So therefore, we're going to shield these children from these dangerous parents. And it's asinine because, Dan, I've said this before. I was evaluated every year as a school principal, and every school has to do that. Any public school that accepts public funds, you have to have, an annual evaluation. But part of your evaluation on that rubric is your communication with parents, you inviting parents in, you including them in so many things, and you actually receive a score on your responsiveness to parents. So this is baffling to me how we've somehow moved from that expectation, which is the correct expectation, to what's happening now.
And you've been a champion of parental rights. And let's talk a little bit about this library legislation of school libraries that passed under the guise of protecting teachers and librarians. But tell us what it was really all about, Dawn.
That was probably the most egregious piece of legislation that I've seen in the year, the 14 months that I've been there. Nothing tops that. It was misnamed the Freedom to Read Act. And in essence, what it did is it masqueraded as if it was giving local control, to the school boards, when in its initial iteration, the school librarian had carte blanche over what was going to happen. Well, somehow it morphs, it has amendments and whatnot. So some people picked up the ball and said, okay, well, at least it's going back to the school board. There has to be a policy. Here we go with these policies. Has to be a policy to challenge, the appropriateness of these books. Well, when, parent advocates, they were the real heroes. I was a principal in school. At the time we had a swell of parents and parent advocates going nuts and saying, are you kidding me? How is this in my school? And Dan, this wasn't for the faint of heart. These weren't the coming of age books when I was a kid or when you were a kid. Nothing like that. These books are so unbelievably sexually explicit for minors. We're talking sex acts, sex toys, and the really most dangerous part is there are some manuals that instruct children. Now, we know this is a problem with social media and kids. Instruct children how to take a naked selfie, how to send a naked selfie of yourself, what the best lighting would be, how to use a sex hookup app when you go on the internet, or even it instructs children how to pay for their porn. One of these books, it encourages children but make sure you always pay after you research your favorite adult film stars. This is not a lie. This is not embellished. This is real. These are books that are real that parents have lost their mind.
And they termed trying to control, trying to not expose young children to sexually explicit material. They termed that book banning.
That's right. And I mean, but that's a page taken right out of like the American Library Association. I mean, this is a movement that took off, in Chicago. And I mean, there's a great gentleman by the name of Dan Kleineman who's done a ton of research, and now he's a target from these librarians that are literally I call them unhinged, who are honestly targeting him at this point for his just blatant truth that he's sharing. And then the legislation becomes even more egregious. Now it goes to if any librarian, and it wasn't just librarian, not a trained media specialist or any employee who works in the library. This could be an aide, this could be a substitute that goes in there. Any human being who is charged with working in the library at all in a public school setting, is held harmless. They are immune if they, without intent, unknowingly distribute sexually explicit material to children. Senator Mike Testa said it the best. He said, I don't know how that accidentally happens. There's no such thing. But in essence, what we just did as a legislature, shamefully, in the face of a report that we received from the SCI that told us that, the Pass the Trash law wasn't being implemented with fidelity, we've now granted immunity from any criminal or civil liability to an entire class of employees that work in New Jersey public schools. And again, when you push back, the answer is, well, you can't tell my kid what to do. If you don't want your child to have pornography in the library, you can't tell my kid. I said, that's the stupidest argument I've ever heard in my life, because quite frankly, our school libraries don't hand out marijuana. They don't hand out cigarettes. They don't hand out Jack Daniels. All perfectly legal for adults in the state of New Jersey, but you cannot distribute them to minors. It's not hard.
I don't think they hand out condoms either, do they? In school libraries?
Not the school library, but some schools with the school nurse, part of those initiatives, I guess they can request them. I was in a middle school, so not so much, no. But I don't know in high school.
Not in a grammar school library.
Well, no, a lot of these texts, they say, oh, they're in the high school library. Well, I don't know. I didn't turn 14 years old till the middle of my freshman year of high school. I went in at 13. So I would not want a 13-year-old, 14-year-old, 15-year-old, any minor at all having access to these kinds of materials. And they say, oh, well, we have the internet. That's great. That's a great story. We have the internet. However, the schools in the state of New Jersey does not have to be the purveyor nor the provider of sexually explicit materials to children. It's abhorrent. So I went and testified, not only in my own committee, I went to the Senate, right? When the Senate has to.
I saw the testimony, yes.
And did you hear the main bill sponsor, Senator Andrew Zwicker, admit, as I sat there with Kristen Cobo, and there were so many advocates. Gentleman from Wake Up New Jersey, Michael, was there. New Jersey Family Policy Council. We had so many advocates there. Team PYC, New Jersey Stands Up. So many parental advocates were there, just sharing their unbelievable shock that this was actually going through. And Senator Zwicker said, although the materials you have presented are certainly sexually explicit, none have been deemed obscene. He is on record publicly saying that. So because he doesn't deem them
because they were deemed instructive, because they were thought to be instructive, therefore they were not obscene?
Allegedly, that they claim that there's the 3-prong Miller test that has to pass, but I question that. I do not believe the materials in the school library need to pass the 3-prong Miller test. This is up to local communities to decide if something is sexually explicit. And they tried to twist it. They tried to twist it and say, oh, well, you're just opposed to LGBT, Q materials, or, and I said, oh my gosh, that's the silliest thing I've ever heard. Heterosexual sex or any other kind of sex is completely inappropriate to expose minors to. It has absolutely nothing to do with that. And again, these false flag arguments, Dan, you leave there with a migraine, because you sit in a room and you can't believe people can be this absolutely ridiculous. And they're that.
Dawn, I have gay friends who are appalled at the idea that this kind of material is in school libraries where underage people can see it. They are not one bit happy about it, and they don't think it does anything to help the gay community or to advance their cause. Okay?
It doesn't. Quite frankly, it doesn't. And I think it's incredibly unfair that this is happening, and that just the assumption is everyone's lumped into this great big pool of people who want to expose children to sexually explicit materials. This is honestly one of the most abhorrent things. And when you show parents these things, and not even that, New Jersey's recommended curriculum resources had a website called Amaze. And on that, they had all these campy little videos, and you have like a little boy literally in the school library, going in the library and taking care of himself in the stall, and coming out and screaming cutesy things and euphemisms for finishing or climaxing. And this was a recommended resource by the New Jersey Department of Education in our health standards. This is the kind of nonsense
Yeah.
that's happening.
But one of the most disturbing things, as we've pointed out, we've been talking about parental rights, is that this is being done without the knowledge or consent of parents. And they're unaware of it. And this is one of the reasons why many, many parents are taking their kids out of public school. And in New Jersey, you work for a charter school. There are very, very few charter schools. The Murphy administration doesn't want any more. They basically closed the door to them. And we know the sort of opportunity that it provides to have school choice, particularly to low-income parents.
You have tens of thousands of children on public charter school waiting lists. We have 85 charter school districts. That's not campuses in total. 85 districts, right, are charters where they have their own district of residence and whatnot. And after, again, Governor Chris Christie, he was a huge advocate of charters, but you know what else he was a huge advocate of? Closing failing charters that were not working. And that was an excellent, excellent method. You would receive a ranking. Are you tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3? Were you on probation? You had a year probation. They would shut you down. That kept the quality up of the schools. When the Murphy administration came in, the Office of Charter Schools became almost like a ghost town for a period of time. And no new charters were issued during the term. New charters were not granted. They were being smacked down left and right. I'm talking about very successful charters in the state of New Jersey. And, they would cherry pick it in the news. And you'll even see now, if you have a couple charters that are going off the reservation doing something ridiculous, right? Absolutely ridiculous and unethical, very much the same as Newark Public Schools, taking our taxpayer dollars and going on, crazy wild drinking and spending and vacation sprees. Very similar to that, and the point is, you can close a public charter school. You cannot close a traditional public school for mismanagement, or, the state will come in and take over. And then that's a sea of garbage leading up years sometimes for the remediation. So it really, you're right, Dan, it's a mess. I mean, parents who are wealthy, we have a lot of, our governor himself, I wonder if he, was not as affluent and lived in an economically disadvantaged area that did not offer a charter school or another choice that he deemed might be appropriate. Would he be sending his kids happily to some of these schools
I don't think he has any concept of the way the average New Jersey person lives. He's enormously wealthy. He lives in a mansion. He came here from Massachusetts. He's not native to New Jersey. You've mentioned several times our good friend Governor Christie, who was, the quintessential Jersey guy. Okay, he knew and still knows the state probably better than almost anyone I could think of. And that's so important in such a unique state as New Jersey. And people are leaving. People are leaving the state. You can go to Florida and they have school choice and they have school vouchers. And you can go to Florida, you can take your kids there, and you'll get a certain amount of money to send each child. You get a certain amount of money for each child, a voucher, to send your child to whatever school you want to send them, public, parochial, private, however you want to do it. I imagine there's even an option for, homeschooling. You have that kind of choice. So you want to talk about, the Democrats always talking about freedom, freedom, freedom. You want to talk about freedom? That's freedom. That's freedom.
They hate them. They hate that, and we know why, right? Because it's tied to the NJEA. And the odd thing is the NJEA started out very, very supportive of charter. Sometimes they were the sponsor of actually starting, but when charters started getting a life of their own and taking off and experiencing success, all of a sudden it became a problem. And I find that problematic. What I find problematic is Florida academically is kicking our rears right now. They have so many charter schools. They have charter schools that specialize in a multitude of things. In New Jersey, we concentrate our charter schools in the areas of need, typically economically disadvantaged areas, overcrowded schools. And I think that's a good thing that we're providing it in those communities. That's not a bad thing. But it's beyond frustrating to me, the myths that go alongside, the bias against public charter schools. It chaps me. The other piece is that when a student leaves a traditional public school and goes to a charter or goes to another school, private school, there's a structure, especially when they leave a traditional public and go to a public charter, for payment and how that works. And the public schools do retain, the traditional public retains a portion. It's supposed to be 10% of the aid, but in actuality, charters get roughly, I've said, anywhere from 72 to 75 cents on the dollar per student. So we're getting less money and having better results in the urban areas with economically disadvantaged children. And the other piece, Dan, you said was really interesting when you were talking about homeschooling. A lot of people don't know this, but when you pull your child out and you homeschool, you don't get a penny from the state of New Jersey, not for resources, not for books. There's very little oversight. And a lot of parents like the fact that there's no oversight because they're not, getting in your business and how you're educating your kids. But a lot of parents don't realize that the traditional public school gets every penny of the tuition or the per pupil cost of your child, even though you're educating them at home. So schools love homeschooled kids because they're still retaining the money for that student without providing any of the services.
And there are so many problems besetting our state. And it's a very critical hour, very critical time for the state. And you are a Republican, you're in a solidly Republican district, Republican county. We've got, 4 or 5 candidates for governor on the Republican side. Have you endorsed anyone at this point, Dawn?
Well, at this point, I haven't formally endorsed anybody. I mean, it's no secret for 2 cycles. I have been behind Jack Cirucci. In 2016, I met him. He came up to our local high school here, Wallkill Valley Regional High School, which was my alma mater. And I met him. And, when he was in that primary race against Kim Guadagno, I did back Jack. He did not win that primary, but I was so happy to see him run again, and then cleared the field of primary candidates, won the primary, and came literally within 3 percentage points of Governor Murphy. So, the one thing I don't understand is when people say, oh, he lost twice or whatever. Maybe it's the teacher in me. But the way I look at it is when I have a kid who starts out and tries and doesn't do so great, and the next time comes in second place, my answer isn't great. Second place, go home. You did it. My always point is you have momentum. Keep going. And if this is something that you want to do, and this is something you think you could do, right, do it. So, I mean, Jack is a friend, and I really have supported him, and I think he's a solid choice. But let's look at it honestly. Any of the Republicans that are running are going to be a vast improvement over those 6. Like that's like a cavalcade. That's a circus that's coming in from the other side. I mean, it's all levels of progressive crazy. So the way I look at it is we can't lose if any of them get in. It can only be.
And I might point out at this time, Dawn, that you see, you've got to understand the history of politics in New Jersey. And by the way, folks, I have on my blog a whole analysis of New Jersey Senate and gubernatorial races going back to 1962. And I give you the whole rundown there on my blog. You can look it up at dancirucci.com. But what a lot of people don't understand, Dawn, is that several governors of New Jersey ran more than once before they were elected governor. This certainly applied to Governor McGreevey. It applied to Governor Florio. I believe it applied to Governor Whitman. So this is not unusual. The reason why it's not complicated, folks. New Jersey is a hard state to get your name out there and get known in, to impact media-wise, because we have no single statewide newspaper. We have no statewide television station, no independent, for-profit statewide television station. We claim to have a New Jersey state radio station, but we really don't. Okay, so to impact the entire most densely populated state in the union, media-wise, is very difficult and also very, very expensive. Probably one of the most expensive media markets in America, because you're talking about New York, the biggest or second biggest media market, and Philadelphia, the fourth or fifth biggest media market, that you have to advertise from to reach both parts of the state. You know how much money you need to run in this state, Dawn.
It's a lot, and people also don't understand. Say, oh, it's all about money and whatnot. And I said, my gosh, even for local races, you don't understand how expensive mailers are, to be on the radio, to be on TV, to even get your message out. It's extraordinarily expensive, and it's shocking. Another point that I could make about the candidates in the gubernatorial races, we can never have what happened last time happen again. And that's where, when someone's candidate of choice was not picked, they stayed home and encouraged others. Actually had the gumption to encourage others to stay home under the guise that it would be just as bad, or Phil Murphy would be preferable to that. That to me is the most outrageous thing. Look, not everybody and not every candidate is going to align to you. There's no such thing as the perfect candidate. You know why? The only perfect candidate is yourself, because you agree with yourself 100% of the time, right? I look at the field of candidates and I look at what's happening on the left, and I can tell you not much alignment there. We're talking 2 to 5% on maybe something, right? That's an offshoot. I mean, I have no alignment there. When I look at our gubernatorial candidates, not one of them is 100% aligned with what I would be if I was the governor. You too, did anybody, right? But at the end of the day, the way I look at it is, when you compare, regardless of who that is, so of the 5 candidates now that are declared and are legitimate candidates that are running on the Republican side, any of them are going to be superior to Governor Murphy 2.0. Mikey Sherrill, Steve Fulop, Ross Baraka. I mean, oh my God, you can't.
Agreed.
Let's just not. So Agreed. The way I look at it is, you might not be thrilled about it, but what is your alternative? What is the alternative? The alternative is we're going to have another 4 years of sending money to art museums and pickleball courts instead of taking care of New Jerseyans. That's the alternative.
Now, Dawn, talking about running for office, and we're going to wind up here in a little while. This has been a fantastic discussion, and you're so well versed on the issues. And what I like, folks, what I like about Dawn also is her passion. I mean, she's passionate about this stuff, and she's fearless. So often we get equivocation from our public officials, but she's very clear. She answers the questions. She's fearless about it too, and because the reason why is because she has conviction in the positions that she takes. They're well thought out, and she's passionate about them. Now we have a situation talking about people running, where now the Democrats in the middle of the race, heading into the primaries now, decided to change the rules on how you go about how many signatures you need on petition to get on the ballot. And apparently they've slipped that one through, Dawn, that got signed by the governor.
That got slipped through, and that's another one where I lost my mind on the floor. I say, Dan, when I drive to Trenton before a session, I'm pre-annoyed. Then when I'm in the session, I'm annoyed. And then when I leave, I'm incensed when I'm doing my 2-hour drive back to Sussex County. So to be honest with you, that one got me chapped, because how dare they, the Democrats finally have challenging primaries with the line going away, with whatever goes on in some of these more urban counties. And I'm from Sussex County. We never had a line. So to be honest, the Morris County line was a new thing for me when I ran with Assemblyman Mike and Ganamort. I learned what the line was. And look, I can't say, I guess I was ambivalent either way. Whatever way the county did it, they did it. But to me, the line wasn't this sacred be all end all, because we never had it in Sussex County before.
Let me just for a moment doing that. When we say the line, we mean that the Republican Party and the Democrat Party in New Jersey were able to design the ballot so that they dominated it and bracketed it as regular Democratic organization and regular Republican organization. That was called the line. And if you got in that line of one of the major parties, you had a distinct and overwhelming advantage over anybody else that was running. Now go ahead.
Right. So in Sussex, we had what was called office block ballots all the time, which is, here's all the candidates for this office. Here's all the candidates for that office. Here's the candidates for that. We only had a little slogan printed under our name that links us to any other office, right? So in Sussex,
Right.
We had a shared slogan and said, okay, I'm running with, like we ran with Senator Parker Space. We shared a slogan. But I mean, our ballot placement in the last election, Mike and I were ballot position 3 and 4 in a field of 1 through 5. And we ended up carrying the county with that, with no line, that we never had a line. So anyhow, right away, I started to see that these little, manipulations were happening as these recommendations were coming. So now, instead of 100 signatures, they wanted these candidates to come up with 250 signatures. Now, if you're brand new to politics and you don't really know the rules of the game, what are the odds in the middle? So here you are, you're home. You say, yeah, I'm almost at my 100. I'm rocking, and now, oh no, sorry, you're in the middle of it, but it's really 250 that you need. I thought that was absolutely disgusting. It was outrageous. And they said, we just want serious candidates on the ballot. We don't want, one of the legislators, a senator, can't recall which one it was, who's a Democrat, said, we don't want clutter on the ballot. Imagine being a novice candidate and being told you are clutter on a ballot running for public office. Like, shame, for shame. So then we got even something better the other day. They put through 2 amendments the Senate sent back to us, 2 additional amendments to the ballot bill, for which I supported the first ballot bill that removed the line, having nothing to do with the signatures, but that removed the line, let you use the common slogan, great. And now they send us back these other 2 initiatives. One takes away the ability of the public to vote for your state committee member, right? So who represents the entire state of New Jersey. They took that away and they gave it back to the counties so that only those who are elected to county committee can vote. And I said, I don't like that. And then there was another gem that was totally out of left field for Sussex County specifically. And that was putting letters and numbers next to names on the ballot. So for instance, if it says, Dan Cirucci, Dawn Fantasia, Michael and Ganamort, right down, you would be 1A, I'd be 1B, and Mike would be 1C. Now here's an office for everybody running for Senate. If they had like Parker Space and, I don't know, John Smith and Jane Doe, they 1A, 1B, 1C. Wait a second. Why are they 1A, 1B, 1C? I'm not running with the 1C person here. And I'm 1C over here. I said, what are you doing? And I was told, well, sometimes it's easy for an identifier, that sometimes people say, oh, when you go in, vote 1A or vote this. I said, I don't know what on earth this is. Up here, maybe we're in the sticks. They say we're backwards up here. Up here, they go to the polls and they say, I'm voting for Parker Space. And they go in and they press the button for Parker Space. You don't need 1A, B, C, Q, a line. You don't need any of that, right? You're not on your merit. And I'm very confused as to all the melodrama that went on around this. And, I don't want to be any part of it. I don't want to be any part of like the complicity behind it. The original ballot bill, yes, I supported. It was a bipartisan effort. It was good. This, I don't know what this is.
So now, here in Camden County, we did have the line, and like I'm explaining, because a lot of people, not only people in New Jersey didn't understand it, they just knew that this is what the ballot looked like. They never knew there was a line. meaning that the organized political parties, once they endorsed candidates, they were able to bracket them in the dominant line on the ballot. And the dominant two lines on the ballot in New Jersey have always been regular Democratic organization and regular Republican organization. And nobody else could use those monikers, so to speak. Now that's gone. And so I'm asking you, Dawn, don't you think it's going to be, because is this going to be, there's going to be some state guidelines, but county clerks are going to have some sway in how this is set up. Don't you think it's going to be confusing with people come May and November?
I think,
April
again, I think, again, like in a county, for instance, in a county
the primary in June.
Right, the primary is in June, and it's going to
June
be
and
having.
November. Don't you think it's going to be confusing in June and
Yes.
November?
The short answer is yes. I mean, in the initial bill was supposed to go into effect in 26, not now, and then they amended it so it would be immediate, right? So it would happen immediately during this primary. So okay, immediate. Again, I can't make a value judgment on the line, the benefit of the line against the line. Visually, I can see. I know some counties love it. I know some counties recently adopted it. Like Morris County is relatively new to the line. Warren County always had the line. Sussex County never had the line. So, you know, I wasn't going to get caught up in the weeds about it. Again, the way I looked at it is it was local control. If Morris County wanted a line, they should have a line. Sussex County didn't want a line. We didn't have a line. But again, if this was a push at election reform and it was going to make the ballot, you know, less identifiable, I read about that ballot Siberia, you know, argument, which, you know, seemed valid, that you had people, you know, that were placed on all different spots that, you know, wouldn't have a snowball's chance. I guess that's why they call it ballot Siberia, you know, because they were stuck way out. But again, I think it's going to be confusing. I think counties that are used to having a line are going to look at a ballot, and name recognition is going to be really, really important. And I feel like, you know, that we didn't have to increase to 250 signatures. Now they have to find your name on a ballot. They have to find you on the ballot. You know, thank God we have those identifiers of 1A and 2B and 6Q. But, you know, putting that aside, they have to know who you are. Like, you have to do your job as a candidate. You have to do your job. You have to be visible. You have to get your message out. But again, Dan, that takes me back to the money. Campaigns are expensive, and it's horrible. That's the horrible aspect of it.
And so I think that when people get their ballots, when they get their sample ballots, it's for many, many people in New Jersey, it's not going to look the way it has always looked. And they're going to have to take a real close look at it to sort it out and figure it out, especially if you're inclined to be associated with one party or the other, and decipher the new ballot. And I hope there's going to be some sort of education effort to help people. They're also, as I understand it, going to extend early voting to the primary election now, which, all right, that's another factor. And of course, for Republicans in June, at the top of the ballot, the primary election is going to be very important. Now, I understand that I believe some gubernatorial candidates on the Republican side are bracketing themselves with county candidates, or at least trying to, through the use of slogans.
Correct. That is correct, that you're able to use the same slogan, but you cannot use a slogan of another candidate, right? So for instance, when you're running, let's say, again, I ran with Assemblyman Ganamort and Senator Parker Space, right? And we didn't run the Parker Space team. You know, that's not what we were. We had a separate slogan that did not involve any of our names, right? And then we have other candidates who share our slogan as well, right? So it's a loose affiliation that if people know the slogan or recognize the slogan, and now, the county committees in some of these counties are voting to at least award the slogan. I don't have an issue with the slogan. I don't have an issue with running mates being together. I don't think that is the big crux of the issue. The big crux of the issue was, again, the whole power brokering, I suppose, of specific candidates, and being able to ice somebody out and really make sure that they were nowhere near where your line of vision would go, upon looking at a ballot. So I don't know. The whole thing is a mess. It would have been a much preferred to have this, again, kick in 26 and take a little more time with it. But as you can imagine, the powers that be were not going to allow that to happen. There's, 80 seats up and the governorship. So I don't think we were going to see that. But I am glad that they came together in a bipartisan way. And again, the first iteration of the bill was decent. I know it wasn't as much as some of the advocates had wanted, but it really was a decent piece of legislation, in my opinion. What it morphed into with those 2 amendments, I wasn't having it.
Well, Dawn, we've also had a lot of comments here on the side. I haven't been able to address them because we've gotten so engrossed in our chat. But this has been a fantastic chat, and I've really enjoyed it. And I do think we've covered a lot of the things that people have been asking us about. I know you're working with your colleagues, Assemblyman Ganamort and Senator Space there in Sussex County. We know that you're strongly aligned with our dear friend Senator Mike Testa. Yeah. And I think the two of you, well, you've got, like I said, the passione, okay?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I think you and Mike are a great 1-2 punch there. You're on the same mindset, huh?
What's really nice, though, also, going from just the county politics, to going statewide, you get to meet people and make these relationships. But I'm really enjoying learning about Morris County because, we lost a huge chunk of Warren County. We used to have about half of Warren County in our district. And now we have 2 towns that remain. And we have, Senator Steinhardt and, our assembly leader, John DeMeo is great, and Eric Peterson. But, to be in Morris County and that western part of the county, I love those towns. Some of those towns, we've always had Mount Olive, in district and are friendly. But now, we have Roxbury, we have Washington Township, Netcong. And Netcong, if you're familiar with Sussex County, Netcong in my head always was kind of like Sussex County because it was just Stanhope's cousin, right next door. And they go to a common high school, a regional high school as well. They cross county lines. So I'm really enjoying our time, spending some time with the Morris County gang. Redistricting sometimes can be painful, but it also has been a real pleasure, I think, in the 24th to welcome them to the fold.
And you folks seem to have adapted beautifully so far at this point. So it's all good. Dawn, I think you have a very bright future. I know we're going to be chatting again, and let's hope this is a great, wonderful year for New Jersey Republicans.
I can only hope and pray, Dan.
Thank you for being with us. And like I say, everybody, it's on my YouTube channel. It'll stay there. And I'm going to put it at the top of my Facebook page, and it will, before the evening is over, it will be up at dancerucci.com. Thanks so much, Dawn.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Okay, bye.
See ya.